Welcome to today's creative nonfiction chat, which is all about speedy paths to your writing future, because writers need to help writers have the right hacks. There are hacks that help every writer speed their path, whether it's a trick on how to grab 8 minutes here or there to write something on the fly, or it's a structure or a resource. So I'm going to be throwing a lot at you. I am Allison Lane, the host of this community, author strategy coach and marketer for authors. This is from 25 years of running PR for global brands. And I'm telling you, there are tricks to everything. There are ways to be faster and more furious, and also carve out the space that you need, even that space, if that space comes in 15-minute increments. You're a writer. If you are writing even one line, boom, you're a writer. I know, bless you, as a writer, you are doing it. So we're going to get right into this. I'm just going to be fast and furious, sharing a bunch of things that you need to know as a writer, which is this. There are many ways that every writer can use what's already out there and learn from what's already working for everyone else. So if you're an aspiring writer, if you already wrote a book, if you're an entrepreneur with a very eager audience, there are ways that you can multiply your output and grab those sort of empty times of the day when you think like, oh, there's no way I can write then. Probably you can. Or you can be thinking of, how to make an opportunity turn into 3. And the way that we do that is using great marketing technique, which is following the beaten path and using the things that work for other people. So that means that whether it's how to pitch yourself to agents, how to put together a book proposal that really sells, how to pitch media, how to have that elevator, that like 13-word, what are you writing about? What's your book about? By the way, it's not about your experience, it's about something universal. You can learn that usually for free. For sure here, I'm going to show you a lot of ways that you can use the tools that I use with my one-on-one clients, getting them agents and published, that you can use yourself, or you can hire me, either or, whatever you want to do. You can do both. So there are a couple of obstacles that get in people's ways when they are thinking that they want to be writing, but they're not following the standards. They're not thinking like a marketer. They're not using the free resources that come with the industry, and they're trying to do the wrong things solo. Like, they're trying to edit their own work. They're trying to, go through round 7 of their work without input from someone else, or they ask the wrong person for advice. And when I say the wrong person, I mean your family members. Your family members are not your critique partners. They're not your beta readers. They're just not. So they're not going to get it. That's the wrong thing. So when I say DIYing the wrong things, that includes like your bubble of people who love you. They're not going to improve your work unless they are also a writer. So you can just know that up front. Also, if you have questions while we're going, just raise your hand. I will see you flagged. I have 2 screens, so I'm like watching you and I'm watching you over there. Okay, so here's what we need to do. We need to learn the standards. We need to save time and money, because I do not want you going to a $15,000 retreat, something that I did, just to learn the stuff that I'm about to tell you in the course of an hour. You don't need to go to a fancy conference or even join a paid writer circle in order to find the things that are free. You can think like a bookseller and you can invest wisely. Maybe you do want to go to a conference, but a conference is once a year and you can be learning and catapulting forward all the time, not just once a year. Because conferences have their place, but you don't need to go to a conference to meet an agent. You can do that in a lot of other ways. And here's how. First, insight is free. Insight comes in the form of media, YouTube videos, and podcasts. And these things are free. Free is good. So there are a ton of podcasts that are about writing. I have compiled a bunch of them, probably 50 or so, on a cheat sheet that I'm about to give to you, that you can just download. Between the couple of us here, you can just download it and listen to these. But here's the thing, there are some podcasts that I really, really like for structure, for diversifying your revenue streams. If you're a coach or if you have an online brand and you're doing one-on-one consults, you can do speaking engagements. There are podcasts that are just for young adult authors, but they're not really just for young adult. They're about marketing. They're about finding your community. And here are a few. First, you have First Draft with Sarah Ennie. Her podcast is really about, she interviews young adult, middle grade agents and authors, but so much it's about people finding their story and then building the story that they tell. She also did a series 2 years ago called Track Changes, which followed an author through their getting agented, through selling their book, through the editing of that book and the publication. And I want to say that book is it is called Don't Ask Me Where I'm From. It is by Jennifer De Leon. She is from Chicago, and her community that she found is through Grub Street, which is an online writers community, but you can certainly join that and get their newsletters, grubstreet.com. They have a conference coming up in the end of March, which is obviously paid, but their newsletter is so full of insight that you might be interested in that. Also, you should listen to the Track Changes sub-series of that podcast because it's so meaningful. It's from two perspectives of the writer and her agent, and her agent's perspective. Plus, then her editor at the publishing house is also interviewed, and they talk about contract negotiations. They talk about the revisions to the storyline, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. All of these things make you smarter as a writer. And again, it's free. So if you're not listening to podcasts, then you're losing out when you're in traffic, or when you're planting those, perennials. If you're it's not quite time to plant my annuals, but my bulbs are coming up. And when I was planting my daffodil bulbs, I was listening to podcasts. And here's how I listen to them. I listen on, let me put this book down. I listen to them at 1.5 times speed on my phone. I have earbuds in, so your earbuds right now. I fast forward when things get sleepy, when someone talks about where they grew up, like skip to the part that's going to give me something is how I feel about that. And some podcasts really give really meaty show notes. So, they'll provide that that all of the things that they talk about, they provide links to, so you don't have to stop and take notes. Mary, you asked, what's Jennifer's last name? It is De Leon, if you can see that. De Leon. So you read the show notes, and then yes, if you have to stop your phone to take a note on your phone, great. Or if you have a dry cleaning receipt, or here's another hack, I keep 3x5 cards in my car and in my purse, because if I have a random note, I don't need a notebook. I need a little scribble in a parking lot or at a traffic light, something that I need to just capture of, go to this website, look at this idea, or I might like a quote or something that's really going to drive me, and then I tape it to my computer later. So 3x5 cards, not sticky notes, because that paper gets crumply. Hazel, go on. This is my, but she is my writing partner, my office mate every day. Okay. So other podcasts that I love are Beautiful Writers. That's hosted by Linda Sievertson, and she interviews authors who are global icons, from Brene Brown and Maria Shriver to who did she have on recently that I thought was just awesome? Saba Tahir, who wrote the Children of Blood and Bone, if you have read that. She is what I liken. She is her podcast is like Inside the Actor Studio, interviewing people that you've known forever and you think you know all of their stuff, but she's able to draw new stuff out that is really helpful, because she knows her audience is full of writers. And she has a book coming out that's based on 6 years of interviewing everyone from Tom Hanks to Glennon Doyle, Patricia Cornwell. That's who she just interviewed, who I love. She wrote a 23-book series about a woman who is a forensic scientist. So that's another podcast. The Creative Pen podcast, hosted by Joanna Penn. She self-publishes and traditionally publishes. She also provides industry snapshots in her podcast. She talks really fast anyway, so sometimes I only listen to that one on 1.25 speed, and that's because my iPhone just now provided the 1.25 speed, so that's helpful, because before it was 1.5 or nothing. Another one, I'm just going to give you a snapshot. The Manuscript Academy has a great podcast hosted by Jessica Sinsheimer and Julie Kingsley, who created the Manuscript Academy and also created the MSWL hashtag, which is used on Twitter for agents identifying what work they're looking for, what type of work. And they have a website, it's very helpful, manuscriptacademy.com. There they interview authors and sometimes agents about their path to publication, particularly, less so about where they grew up and stuff, but sometimes about structure, sometimes about finding their hook, sometimes about career motivation or career growth. It's very, very helpful. And there are, hundreds of episodes you can listen to. So the backlog is really good. Another podcast that I love is 88 Cups of Tea. Similar YA focus, young adult focus, but also very marketable. One podcast that I really like that's about memoir and personal storytelling is Marion Roach Smith's QWERTY. It's QWERTY, which is essentially what you see when you have on a keyboard, QWERTY. And that's a podcast for and about writers. So there are a bunch. I'm going to drop a link into the chat right now so that you can grab this. And all you have to do is just download it. It's I will provide it in the Facebook group soon so that it can go to people's emails. But for right now, I'm just giving you the direct link. Beyond podcasts, let's go to the next thing. So if you are working on the go, like me, if you're carting kids around or you have 20 minutes for lunch at work and while you're eating, you want to be doing something else, you want to be, self-editing, whatever, there are online digital tools that you can put on your phone or on your computer, sometimes for free, sometimes for a tiny little cost. So one of the things that I use to capture my work when I'm on the go and I don't have access to a pen and paper, like when I'm walking the dogs, is I put the otter.ai app on my phone. It is a talk to text. So I used to just text myself with the audio, but this is better. And Otter allows me to talk, and it captures, a half an hour worth of words and turns it into text and sends it to me in a Word document if that's how I choose. And I've used it to interview people. I once did an entire day at work interviewing tons and tons of people, and I was able to pull out the most meaningful quotes without having to go take notes the entire day. So Otter IA is great. If you upgrade, if you don't use the free version and you want to upgrade, then it'll call out the different people. So it'll say speaker 1, speaker 2, because it then recognizes the voices, which is super helpful. In terms of online digital editing, you want to use something beyond what comes with Word, or what comes with that. So something like Grammarly is what I use, and it integrates with Word nicely, and more than just spelling, it'll say, did you mean to put this modifier? And sometimes, yes, I do. Or it'll catch the differences between like punctuation marks with like quotation marks that are straight versus curly. Did you want to make these consistent throughout? Okay, and you just pick one. And that it's those little niggly things that it catches that I really like. It also allows you to identify what sort of style and voice you're writing in. Formal, casual, somewhere in between. Is it technical? Is it conversational? You can set it to that so it knows how diligent to be. And sometimes they'll say, I don't think you meant to use that word. And that's helpful too. And I've seen it do that when my clients send me their work, and I'm like, ooh, that's a homonym. They didn't catch it, but Grammarly did. And I would have, but when I'm reading somebody's entire book proposal, that's 90 pages, it's nice to have Grammarly there to help to put those in there. Another online digital tool for editing is AutoCrit. Another one is Pro Writing Aid, which also integrates with Scrivener, which is a way to manage your your manuscript as it comes together. I bought Scrivener, but you know what? I just never got the hang of it. So I went back to using Word. Scrivener works great if you work on Apple. I never made the switch to Apple, so I'm stuck with what I've got, which is totally fine. Here's a tool that can help with structuring your work, whether you're writing self-help or business or memoir or fiction. StoryGrid helps you structure your work. Even in a nonfiction book that's not memoir, there is a flow, and because people tend to, if something's not gripping in the middle of a book, people can check out. So you want your nonfiction, historical, true crime piece, narrative nonfiction, to feel like it has a plot, or it has a climax, and it really gives something. StoryGrid can help with that. Let me stop and see. Mona says, even with Grammarly, you must read the suggestions and make sure you want to use what it says. It's true. Sometimes I'm like, nope, that's what I meant. I don't want to accept your change, or I know that I'm always going to use this misspelling or add this spelling to my dictionary. It's really helpful to be able to customize that. Mona says, I love Grammarly. Good. Yeah. Okay, here are other things that you need to know before you develop your, sci-fi novel or your memoir. We need to know about word counts. Word count ranges for different genres are standards, and there are, of course, exceptions. But if you're writing memoir and you just wrote 200,000 words, it's going to be hard to get that published, because memoir is based on especially debut memoir, is based on a book being kind of manageable. And if you're unknown, 200,000 words it's about 2/3 too long. So I'm going to go through a couple of ranges, and feel free to ask questions. For picture books range, these are books for pre-readers, range in around 300 words. And for picture books, you don't need a book proposal. And you just need a query letter, which is probably the same length as the words on your picture book. And if you're not an illustrator, do not illustrate it. You just need your manuscript, your 300-word manuscript, or 400 or 200. It doesn't, you can go either way. And you need your query letter. For everything, you need a query letter, all genres. For middle grade, the range is between 30,000 words and 50,000 words, give or take. And then you need a query letter, a proposal, and a full manuscript. For all fiction, you need the full manuscript. For young adult, range is 50 to 75,000 words. Again, proposal, full manuscript. And young adult is 13 to 18. Your reader is 13 to 18. For science fiction, in fantasy, boy, it can really go up there. They say if it's your debut, have it be under 100,000, even if it's 98,000. We don't ever need to know it's 98,716 words. Just a round number, 98,000, 99,000. But sci-fi and fantasy, anywhere from 65,000 words to say 90. But so long as it's under 100. If it's your second sophomore or junior book, it could be up to 120,000. Wait, Mona's saying that too. Yep, it could be up to 120,000, especially if it's, fantasy and there's a lot of world building. It makes sense. So these are these are ranges. And then for romance, boy, it varies. So you can't even say. But for all other fiction, you're going to want to be between 65,000 words and 85,000 words, maybe even a little bit less. 60,000 is fine. And that even includes memoir, because you have to remember that memoir is, it reads like fiction. It's a novel about you. So it has the same arc, and it has to be complete when you pitch it to agents. So I'm just telling you things that, unfortunately, aren't published somewhere. And this will speed your path. And also, just so you don't waste, an extra year writing an extra 100,000 words, if you're writing nonfiction, if you're writing self-help or business or a historical perspective, something on sports or even public affairs, you don't write your whole book. You don't write your whole book. You have a query, you have a proposal, and you have 2 sample chapters. And that's it. That's all we want to know about you in terms of word counts and nonfiction. Let's see, I'm going to go on to just checking the time, making sure. Okay, here are ways to get smarter about publishing and about absorbing what's already out there. Kathy asks, I had my memoir edited. Originally, it was 80,000 words. Now it's about 53. 53 is a little light. I would say shoot for 60, 61, 65. I wonder how they got from 80 to 53. You'll have to tell me. Before we move forward, Kathy, can you unmute and tell me how did they cut?
The editor went through it. We had 3 rounds of edits, and she said that when moving the story forward, so she cut big chunks and said, fill it in with whatever she advised me to fill it in with, and I did. And when I was done, she said, this book is ready to go out there. And I said, but it's only 53,000 words now. She said, that's fine. So, okay. But I worried because that was a lot of cutting. But she said, move the story forward. So.
Well, and there are exceptions, right? But when an agent is looking at something, and they think, an agent is like a realtor for your book. So they don't want to come to your fixer-upper when you're looking for a fast sell and then go, you still have to add 15,000 words. And just like a realtor would be like, can you please mow the lawn? And could you please, put a fresh coat of paint on it and make it saleable? Every realtor gives you a punch list before they're going to sell your house. And the agent, even the real estate agent, is looking for the fast sell, and they're not part of that. They want you to come to them with it already finished, with the lawn already mowed. They sort of think of it as like an obvious, right? So when you pitch your work to an agent, and for them to see a fast yes, you want to make sure that work is already done, because unlike a realtor who are competing for your business at this time because there's nothing on the market, agents are overrun with queries. They get 150, 200 queries each week. And they only look at those after their regular hours, nighttime and weekends, and only when they, when they're watching Netflix at night and they're sort of looking at it on their phone and they're thinking, what's an easy sell? And if they see your story and it's 53,000 words and they think, it feels like there's probably not enough there. I really wish it was longer. You just want it to be a fast yes for them, and not like a, gosh, I don't know, maybe I'll come back to it. Mona says, I'd go back in and add emotion and experiences to what was kept to get to 10,000 words and see how it feels. I agree. I agree with Mona. I think that there's always a way to add scenes. Sometimes with my clients, I've taken 2 sentences where they summed something up, and I've said, I think we should just turn this into a scene of dialogue. And it not only does it immerse the reader in the, in the feeling, and instead of you commentating to what happened, but it's a way to add some richness. And in doing so, you end up adding, a page and a half of content. And 10,000 words is maybe 20 pages. So if you took 2 sentences 15 times and you did that, you'd outshoot that. You really check the box on that one. And you can bring maybe you bring a couple pages to the next compassionate critique session and see hey, I need to, what is ripe for more telling? Am I skimming over anything? And you can also ask for a critique partner in the creative nonfiction community. If someone wants to, raise their hand for that, they certainly will. You could also just cut and paste 1 page of content to ask, hey, is there anything in this 1 page that screams, I want more of this, because I need to add a couple thousand words to my manuscript. What questions do you still have? And let people tell you. Those are easy ways to do that. So that's 3 actions right there that really don't require you to do much. Just ask for input. Mona and also says, look at what was cut and figure out why. Because one editor's perspective isn't everyone's. I have a client right now who we queried 15 agents on Thursday. On Friday, she got an offer like this. I mean, she got a response in 16 minutes from an agent. And so we know that agents are looking at their queries, looking for the thing that they already know that they're looking for. It's like when you're looking for love and you kind of know who's a good fit, and then you come across them and it's like that, oh, I can't believe, we fell in love across the room. No, you didn't. You had a list in your mind and then you identified who it was. So that's what happens with writers and editors. If you're pitching an essay that's a fast yes, it's because the editor you're pitching knows what they're looking for. The agent knows what she's looking for. But the reason I bring this up is because she's now gotten 2 offers. So Friday happened, she got an offer, and then a couple of agents said, can we talk on Tuesday? Because Friday we ran out of time. So she got an offer yesterday, and then I think she's going to get another one tomorrow. And each of them had different perspectives on what's needed in order to turn around and sell her book. This is nonfiction. And one said, oh, I think we should add this element to every chapter, like a worksheet or exercises. And the other said, no, your editor at your publishing house might talk to you about that, but maybe not. That's just to say, edits are subjective. So, if I got a hold of your manuscript, or Candace did, or Mona did, we might have a totally different perspective. Right? So that's the great thing about opinions. Everybody's got one. Okay, so resources that you need to know. One is Publishers Marketplace. If you are not already getting the free Publishers Marketplace newsletter, which is free is good. You got to get it. It's free. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Free. Then you are missing out, because just by getting the Publishers Marketplace newsletter, it's called the daily marketplace or daily deals or something. I think it should be called the daily lunch, publisher's lunch. Anyway, when you see the deals pitched in this way, it becomes really clear how your book needs to be pitched. So, and that can help you in pitching media. It can help you in what to put on your website. It can help you in how to put together your query. I'm going to share my screen real quick and show you. Let me go. I just want to share with you this one thing here. Okay. Share my screen. Share screen. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So here I am. I'm sharing my screen. This is the deal report from my client, Miriam Schulman, is an artist, and she has an online, like she does digital classes, and she has a podcast. And the podcast is pretty well ranked, but it's not like in the top 100 in the globe, you know. But when we pitched her book, we pitched it as, by artist, teacher, and podcaster. And so that she hadn't thought of herself as a teacher, more of a coach, but the teacher became part of her bio. And then what it's about, sharing secrets to turning a creative endeavor into a financially sustainable business. Well, that is, what everyone wants. And we really had to get away from, selling your art, because art is broad. And even when we were looking at the cover designs, a couple weeks ago, she called and she said, the publisher just sent me their cover designs. They're all awful. What should I do? And I was like, first of all, they are all lacking. They look like they're of knockoffs of best-selling books. And so they probably provided some examples to artists. Maybe they outsourced it. But also, you're an artist. Whip that up. And an hour and a half later, she had a cover design she sent to her agent, and her agent loved it, and now the publisher loves it. So she got to design her cover so that it's not just about artists, because what they had provided was like a paintbrush with paint on it. She was like, no, but it's not always about that. Sometimes it's a photographer. Sometimes it's, some multimedia. Like, yeah. So her book is about this step-by-step guide to making a living. And when you see these deal reports, it sort of washes over you that I need to be able to pitch my book like this. So that is what I wanted to show you right there. I'm sorry if it's too small. Mona says, another great podcast I discovered is run by an agent. Oh, this is run by Sarah Nicholas, Queries, Qualms, and Quirks. Is that right? Yeah. Sarah Nicholas was running events for the Orlando library system. It's called the Orange County library system. And I did that's funny that you mentioned that, because I did a free workshop for the Orange County library system on just like how to get your book published. And then Sarah just became an agent. She left that, and she's also an author. She's published several books. She just became an author, published author as well. I mean, an agent as well. Let me get back to where we were in, let me check the time too. Okay, other resources you should be using other than Publisher's Lunch. Manuscript wish list. Manuscriptwishlist.com really allows you to search for agents in 3 different ways, and they're all free. And all the instructions are there. I'm not going to use our time today, but maybe another time we'll just focus on that. Another, just going through my my little list of tips. Here's something. All authors have at the ready a website that's just your home base, and it can just be one page. It doesn't have to be much. You can use Wix, which is free. But before you do, and please don't hire anyone to develop a website for you when you just need one page, always use the template. Do not change it, because the templates get updated every once in a while. And when they do, if you fiddle with it, your website will get jacked up. So you don't want that. But before you lay out your website, you want to have one high-res photo of you against something that's vague, like trees or a brick wall, or, definitely not busy, not a crowd of people. And we don't want to see anybody else's half of their face or their earlobe in the picture. Like if you're doing that, if you're doing a grab and grin, we don't want to see you gripping someone else and then half of your arm. We just want, from the nipples up, you. And it's okay to crop you out of something else, but it's best if it's, we just see you. And a short bio, and then 3 or 4 words that sum you up. And please don't start with writer. If you are a grief counselor and multilingual and a travel writer, that might be interesting. But we want those 3 things to be a mashup. Don't start with writer. We know you're a writer because your site is your writing. And then you want to have one social media profile. Everything else, all the other hacks about how to grow your platform or your discoverability, that can come once you do these simple hacks of use the tools that are available that everyone else is using, that they will, it seems obvious once you know about it. That's the thing that's so frustrating about publishing, is that once you know about it, you're like, oh, of course, Publishers Marketplace. But until you know about it, you're like, how do people figure this out? Who else is selling books and what genre they're in and which genre am I writing, or who are the agents out there? There are free ways to figure that out. And then if you want help in doing that, there are a lot of ways that are about community. One is this community. You can ask, where should I pitch this essay that I wrote about my husband's gout? And what a bummer that is, because I now have to do all the yard work. I feel like there's a yard work thing going on in my head. Has anyone seen any recent agent looking for stories by adoptees? And I'm always thinking of Eric Smith from PS Literary, because he's been for many, many years said, I'm looking for adoptee stories about adoptees, specifically for, I think, middle grade picture books, memoir, less so YA, but also in nonfiction. And you can ask that. So start with the community you're in. Ask for beta readers. Those are people who really understand the genre because they really love the genre. Like I love thrillers, and I love like beachy reads. I like things that would have a lot of dialogue, because my work is so focused on book proposals and marketing. I tend to not read marketing books for fun. And then critique partners. If you want somebody to really dig into your work, and you can say, how's the pacing? That's not something you ask a beta reader. That's something you ask a critique partner. And that has to come with trust. So let me stop here, because I have been vomiting on you all the things that these are all tools that I use, and I am a professional, author strategy coach and marketer. And these are the tools that I use, and these are the first things that I tell my clients to use. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute. It's a free-for-all. Anything to add? Mona, that is a cute cat.
Well, the other one is on the floor and she's jealous, and so he's getting kind of antsy. And he's big.
Yes.
So Allison, like if you mentioned early on about like writers' conferences, obviously things changed a lot during the pandemic, but things are starting to pick up again. I've only ever been to one or a couple, and they were virtual, but, in thinking about that, do you have any that you recommend? I mean, like if I were to go, which is unlikely at this point, but
Right.
If I were to go, are there any that are, these are the ones that are hands down the best? Like if you're like, for me at this point in where I'm at with things, it would be all about networking, meeting people,
Right.
and talking about, my memoir.
Right. So, for your memoir, which is coming out in the fall of this year, I would look at two types of conferences. One about your topic.
Yeah, which I am.
And right, which you are, because your opportunity to talk about being a birth mother and what that experience was like, and is different than your opportunity as a writer, to be a face for, real people to talk about anticipatory grief, the trauma that comes from everything that you've gone through is different. So let's set that aside for a minute. In terms of writerly conferences, I think your aim needs to be connecting with other writers who are publishing this year, and so that you can all market, you can learn and they can learn from you in how you're going to be marketing yourself. So in that, there are, before you even think of, conferences, there are Twitter hashtags and Facebook groups that are about those, that are for people who are getting published this year. So Stephanie Weaver is running one of them. And I think you're connected to her. She's in this group. Yeah. She's a published author, and she's really, really good as an essayist, and she writes about food a lot. And she wrote a couple cookbooks that are also have a lot of story in them about migraine and, the migraine-free kitchen, which is very thoughtful and helpful for women. So she's running one, and then she and I together are going to be sharing a marketing class for building your voice based on your book. So one, just look for that, because we're going to be giving a lot of tips out in this group. Secondly, there are a couple conferences coming up that you might look at. One is, and nowadays they all have some sort of virtual component. So there's a conference coming up for, it has a really generic name, so I'm going to forget it. It's like Stephanie's full name is Stephanie Weaver. And she's in this group, and she's also brilliant and kind, and you can even consult with her. She sells like 4-session packages on speaking. She's been a speaker coach, or she is a speaker coach for TED speakers. And so she's worked with celebrities and authors and thinkers and experts so that they are presenting their mic drop statements in the best way. She's very gentle like that. But there's a conference coming up in Philadelphia, and it has a virtual portion. It's in March, and I want to say it's like the National Authors Association something. So I'll think of it, and I will, I'm sure, post it in the group. Another one is Grub Street has a conference coming up. There's a conference in New York. There are conferences in San Francisco, New York, Philadelphia, Texas. I think the Y'all Fest, which is for YA, get it? Y'all, YA. Yeah, clever. I'm not sure I think that happens, it's sort of rotating. So one year it was in South Carolina, and so I'm not sure. There's one in Chicago. Best case, do a search on Publishers Marketplace. But now that you said that, I'm gonna think of it, and I will share it with you. The other association you might want to look at, Writer's Digest usually has a list of conferences that are coming up. And SCBWI, if you're writing anything for anyone under 18, even nonfiction, it's the Society of Children's Book Authors and Illustrators, SCBWI, Society for Children's Books Writers and Illustrators, has a conference. And last year it was virtual and really impactful. I mean, you really just want to block the 3 days or the 2 days. The thing about that is that you don't get the like bump into somebody in the hallway if you're trying to meet up, but you have to be ready to really communicate in the chats during presentations and be asking people, anybody here writing memoir, anybody living in Alaska, because Candace lives in Alaska, so that you take that action, because that's just something you have to dig for, because you're not really seeing other people's faces during a keynote.
And I just got the latest issue of Poets and Writers in the mail. They always have conferences listed in here.
Yeah.
So if I see anything, well, I will see tons.
Yes, there are tons.
Yeah.
The thing sometimes about those conferences is that there are panels about maybe a topic and not, writing for, non-binary children. Like, that's super. But I guess I'm going to have to start submitting to these conferences, but I think we need to have panels that are about marketing for authors.
Yeah, you can always go to Poets and Writers online and Writer's Digest online and look at, I think you can look at the journals online without subscribing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you can, to look for the conferences in them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What other questions? You guys are quiet today. Mary, you unmuted. Hey, Nancy.
No,
you snuck in there.
I can't think of a question right now. There's a lot to be done.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to overwhelm. This is
No, but that's okay. I haven't done anything more with my memoir, and it's only 25,000 words. And I know you said I should probably do something. How could I market it as something other than a memoir? What could I do with it as is? I don't want to add anything more, like a self-help. I don't.
Yeah. What I would do, if it's self-help, is I would see if instead of trying to submit it as a book, you could submit it as articles and service articles that you could get paid for. I mean, you can submit pitches that are not personal essays, but actual, 5 ways to do this, 3 mistakes to avoid when you're trying to do that, for general market publications, from Parents Magazine to, Real Simple, to Outdoor Magazine. It doesn't matter. You can use, there are 15 ways to pitch every story. You know this because I have shared my cheat sheet of the 15 ways, and the 15 ways you can pivot any story to 15 different angles. So you could definitely do that. And, be landing publications in a way that's not, going to end up becoming a book. Or the other way would be to turn it into a gift book, maybe with quotes and not adding to the story so much, since it is self-help, but make it be
Well, the book really,
inspiration.
it's just my story about our dealing with our newborn who was dying. It's really not self-help. It's just an experience that we had and then what we did with it. So I'm not telling anybody what to do. What I just want to present is what we did, what worked for us, and then where it took me. That's when I got involved with bereavement.
Right, but Mary, when you're saying you're presenting what happened to you and how you dealt with it becomes how other people might also deal with it. So even if you're not telling someone these are 3 steps you should do,
Uh-huh.
you're like inviting them to consider these thoughts or what you might do. So it doesn't have to be you must do this.
No.
It's not 3 steps to plug, to screw in a light bulb. It's, if this is you, or if you know someone, here's a resource that helped. You might also write a note if you know someone, write a card to them every month and just put it in the mail. You don't have to show up at their house or call them. The card is enough.
Yeah, can you see this book helping other people, even though you're not writing it as a self-help book? Can you see it helping other people?
Yes, I think it could, because we also had our children involved. They were 3 and 5, and they got to hold her, and because they were anticipating this baby. So that was very helpful to them.
So if you have it divided up into sections or chapters at all,
it is.
Then if you wanted to go the first route that Allison described and publish it as separate articles, then you would have to look at, or might want to look at separate chapters or sections and figure out what is the heart of that chapter or section, and then figure out how you want to present that if you wanted to publish that alone. So if you had, say, 10 sections or chapters, then you might have 10 articles there. Or you could, like she suggested, as a gift book for the experience itself. And gift books are a different thing. They're a different animal.
Well, so a gift book could be a small, I really do want to keep this all together as a book. And even if it's just, published very simply, and just, like
there's a market for everything. Yep, there's a market for everything. I mean, you could go through we'd have to talk further about it, but I think that this is something that you should bring to the compassionate critiques and let's figure out the path to your publication.
Okay.
If anyone is thinking, okay, it's now time to figure out my path and put together my proposal or my query, I want to offer you, I have now created a program that is a fraction of the cost of working with me one-on-one to develop your proposal. And that I'm just putting the link in. It's develop your badass book proposal in 45 days. It is literally 6 weeks, step by step. It's a group program, small group, to developing the book proposal. My one-on-one fee is $8,000. So yeah. And that's, you get all of me all the time for, 8 weeks when you do that, but that's not possible for most people. And so I wanted to provide all of the methods and the tricks that I use, and with still access to me through Voxer and text and, all the ways, because I'm always on and always available, but for much less, and giving you the agents, the query, and essentially everything that I give. So that's available. And also just make sure that you show up for yourself. Whether you hire someone, hire me, hire an editor, hire someone else, or you do it all yourself, show up, use the things first that are free. And free doesn't mean do everything yourself. It means be wise and ask, is there a way I can edit something down? Is there a way I can partner with a critique partner to cut 5,000 words out of this? You trade with someone, and it doesn't have to be the same time. You can trade, you can become a critique partner and say, my manuscript will be done in May, your manuscript will be done in July, and then we switch, at that time. Nancy is saying, how much for group? What do you, you mean the badass book proposal? If you follow the link, everything's there, everything you get and everything, it's all there. But just show up and ask for what you need, because somebody's going to know. And also in the group, if you know something and you can answer someone's question, please do. This is a community. It is not the Allison branded show. It is that, and Mona and Candace are moderators, so they're trying to help people sort of get engaged, but this is community, and it only works when we all show up for each other. So ask for what you need and share what you know, please, because we are all writing and marketing our work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for showing up. Again, I hope you enjoy the podcast that Propel Your Writing cheat sheet. I'll be sharing that in the group. You'll get the replay of this, and always ask questions. Just come with what you need, and let's make sure you get it.